Amigos, otra fiesta el día de hoy nos conectamos de manera virtual con el actor Matt Shivley de la serie Lopez versus Lopez. Matt, how are you?
I'm doing great. I'm learning Spanish right now, so I picked up about a third of what you said.
Well, then let's do the interview in Spanish to see how much you've learned. No, I'm just kidding.
See?
When I was little, my grandmother would say, "You need to learn how to read in the dark," so I did.
Really?
How are things going? How's everything going?
Things are great. We had a quick 2-month break, and we just got back last week, and it's such a breath of fresh air to be back at work. It's like you always wait for the vacation. You're like, oh, I can't wait to go on vacation. About 5 days in, I'm like, okay, I'm ready to go back. I'm ready to be back at work. With my
family. Missing the whole cast probably and the crew and everybody. And I see you guys have a beautiful studio, a beautiful set. You were posting on social media with like a number and everything.
Yeah, they hadn't painted a number on the stage, and so I didn't know what stage we were. And when I showed back up last week, they had painted the number, and it just happened to be the same stage number that I had for, the thing that started my career 15 years ago. And so I was like, that's a good omen. This is great.
I love it. But let's talk about Lopez versus Lopez. It's an amazing show. People are loving it. And I love your character, Quinten. He's like relatable too. I love in this episode how he does the Princess Diaries reference. That was amazing. Focusing on this episode, he's going through a hard time trying to be like, I guess not like accepted, but liked and like, basically bond with his father-in-law. I feel like it's so hard when somebody has to go through that, and try to like things that they don't like or try to pretend to be somebody they're not just to be liked, Tell us a little bit about what he goes through in this episode.
Yeah, so he's just trying to bond with George on any level possible. And Mayan talks him into joining George's fantasy baseball league. And of course, Quinten has no idea any of the ins and outs of baseball, but he's like, you know what, this is my only opportunity right now, so I'm going to take it. And it's easy to kind of fall into because my girlfriend in real life, it's that I've gone through this with her dad where, I go home for Christmas with them. And when I met him, it was like, okay, well, what do I have to do? And he's a big beer guy. He knows all about beer. And so I'm sitting there and trying to pretend that I also know about beer. And so it's that kind of relatable thing of like, you're trying to be friends with this person that in any other situation, it would never happen. And so, for him, it's he's trying to be the man that George is. And it's kind of raises the question of like, what makes a man nowadays? And I think Quinten is more by the end of it, like, well, what makes a person, and Quinten is always on my inside and kind of trying to teeter the line of not being disrespectful to her, but also trying to, relate to George and his friends. And it just doesn't always work out for him because it's just not who he is.
It's very funny to try to see him, and that's love, that's love. You try to like be liked by the family. And that's funny that you say that your current, like your girlfriend, his father likes beer. Like, so you had to do the beer chugging. You kind of had it that square for this episode, or?
Well, so it's beyond the beer chugging. It's more of like, he knows IPAs and he knows stouts and he knows this. And I'm like, yeah, he's like, well, you're 32. You know about beer. I'm like, I know what it tastes like. I don't know the difference between them, but he's like an encyclopedia with it. But yeah, I got to do a keg stand in this one, and I hadn't done that since I was 21 years old. And it was so funny because I would go for it. So I don't know what ended up making. I haven't seen the episode yet, but there were like 3 different takes where once they flipped me back over, I would let up and I almost threw up like multiple times because I'm sitting there just chugging this fake beer and then getting flipped over and I'm like, yeah. So the whole thing was really cool because it was just Quinten was doing things that he had not done before in any of the other episodes. So it was very much like, getting to step outside of the Quinten box of what I'm used to and being able to do like totally different things.
I've never done one myself. It's funny because when I saw that, I was like, I think I never really did one, and I don't really.
You never done a keg stand?
I've never, like I don't know. I don't really drink that much.
That's fair.
I drink tequila. You don't do keg stands with tequila.
No.
You just you take the shot.
I don't know if you do, you wake up the next day having no idea what happened after that. I'm sure.
I don't think I recommend doing that. The cheap napkin was so funny too, because I feel like he had everything written down and he was ready to kind of like play his part. And all of a sudden he sits there. They grab the napkin right away out of his hand and they blow their nose, or he blows their nose, and it's gone. What was that moment like for him? What would you think Quinten was? What was his mind thinking at the moment?
I think he was like, well, the jig is up. It's done. This is as far as I go. It's not going to work out from here. If I had to equate it to like what it would be like for me, it would be like if somebody was like, here's the new sides, and you look at them, and as you go to look at them, they take them away, and you're like, and they say action, now say your lines. And you're like, well, I didn't have any time to actually take this in, so I'm not prepared for this. So I think at that point, he was really just like, well, the game is over. Like, this is not going to go any further. I don't know anything about anything, so please somebody help me here. And luckily something happens to where he's able to not be completely, put on blast for not knowing anything.
And you guys record with a live audience, right?
We do, yeah. Most of the time we do on Tuesdays, which is always great because we pre-shoot most of the show so that by the time we do it in front of the audience, every time we do it, we only do 1 or 2 takes and we get to just kind of have fun with it and be loose with it because they already have it, which I find usually is when you get really the magic of the show is a lot of times we get the best performances out of us when we have an audience because it's just immediate reaction to things and you feed off that. And for anybody who's been in theater like me, there's nothing better than a reaction from the audience because it's working. And then that kind of loosens you up and you start playing around and doing things that you weren't doing before and finding better ways to say a joke or better ways to kind of reword it, things like that. So yeah, live audience is the highlight of my week every week. Everybody check out Lopez vs. Lopez Friday nights at 8 p.m. on NBC. And then the next day it's on Peacock or on demand if you got that.